I have held this file for 11 years without opening it. That is not negligence. That is policy. The only policy Compact has ever issued without a dissenting vote, without a revision cycle, a single registered objection from any of its 417 member species. The file exists. It is sealed. It will remain sealed. Anyone who wishes to know why has only to read the designation stamped on the outer registry. Vorthane Hegemony, Administrative Action Log, Human Space Pacification Initiative, closed extinct. That last word carries its own answer. I am Southern Vole, Senior Archivist, Third Chair of the Compact Pacification Registry, and I am the only living official who has read the complete internal record of what the Vorthane Hegemony did, why they believed they could do it, and what the result was. I did not volunteer for this. I was assigned because my predecessor retired 4 days after opening the file and has not spoken publicly since. I was told when I accepted the chair that the assignment carried a single professional obligation: review the record, write the closing notation, and seal it. No analysis, no policy brief, no circulated summary. The closing notation is 9 words. I wrote them on the same afternoon I finished reading, and I have not looked at the file since. I am breaking that policy now, in part, because the Teravath Expansion Directorate has submitted a formal inquiry asking whether the Compact has any jurisdiction precedent for the administrative classification of human space. They believe there may be one. They want to cite it. There is one. The Vorthane Hegemony filed exactly that classification in the 47th cycle of their expansion, and the Compact, which was younger then, less cautious, with fewer empty seats, countersigned it as a matter of routine. I am going to explain, once, why that precedent cannot be cited. Then, I am going to reseal this record and submit a formal recommendation that the Teravath inquiry be closed without response. The Vorthane Hegemony was, by any measure that mattered, among the most capable administrative civilizations this galaxy had produced. They did not conquer through violence alone. They conquered through categorization. Every species, every sector, every navigable anomaly they encountered was assessed, graded, filed, and assigned a management protocol. They had categories for everything: client species, contested zones, dormant threats, recoverable ruins, inert hazards. Their registry ran to 42 million entries. It was considered, at the time of their peak, the most complete map of galactic political space ever compiled. They were thorough. They were methodical. They were, in their own records, justifiably proud of that thoroughness. In the 43rd cycle of their expansion, Forward Survey Fleet reached the boundary of what the Compact then designated as the uncharted marginal territories, what the rest of the galaxy, in quieter language, simply called the region no one approached. The hegemony surveyors noted that the boundary was marked by no physical barrier, no active defense perimeter, no visible patrol. The older Compact navigation advisories recommending avoidance were, in the hegemony's internal assessment, consistent with the bureaucratic risk aversion of less systematically organized civilizations. They filed their own survey notation. Territories were undefended. The prior advisories were reclassified as legacy caution, not active intelligence. I want to pause here, because this notation is the one that matters, not the fleet orders that came later, not the occupation protocols, not the administrative declaration. This single survey notation, filed by a junior cartographic officer whose name I will not record here, because he had no authority to make the assessment, and no basis for the confidence with which he made it. This is where the file turns. The hegemony sent a pacification fleet in the 44th cycle. I will not record its size, because the number is irrelevant to what happened, and because no good comes from dwelling on it. What I will record is what their own logs show. The fleet entered the designated territories in good order, established a forward command position inside the boundary, and began the standard administrative protocols for classification and incorporation. Their first 17 days of log entries are the most mundane documents in the entire file. Resource surveys, navigation calibrations, species presence assessments returning null results. Everything orderly, everything routine. On the 18th day, the log entries stop. Not with a distress signal, not with a combat notation, not with any entry at all. The logs simply stop, the way a conversation stops when someone leaves the room and does not come back. The Hegemony waited. They sent a courier vessel, a fast, minimal crew relay ship, the kind used for exactly this contingency. The courier entered the boundary and did not return. They sent a second courier with instructions to stop at the boundary and transmit, not to enter. That courier returned with a transmission report. It had received no outgoing signal from inside the boundary, on any frequency, in any encoding format, on any channel the Hegemony operated. The silence inside was complete. What happened next is the part I find most instructive and most difficult to read without something that in my species we call the cold settling. The feeling that arrives when you understand, fully, you are looking at a thing that cannot be undone. The Hegemony did not reclassify. They doubled down. Their administrative doctrine held that silence from an occupied territory was a communication failure, not an operational one. The fleet had gone quiet because the fleet had not yet established the relay infrastructure required for routine reporting. This was a known gap in early-phase occupation protocols. The solution was reinforcement. They sent a second fleet, larger than the first. I will not record what happened to it, because I do not need to, because the Hegemony's own records do not tell me. There are no records from the second fleet at all. No logs, no courier reports, no relay pings. The second fleet entered the boundary and produced, in every channel, and on every frequency the Hegemony monitored, exactly what the first had produced. Nothing. The Hegemony convened an emergency administrative council in the 45th cycle. The session transcripts are in the file. I have read them twice. Both times I came away with the same impression. The council understood by that point that something had gone wrong, in a way their categories could not contain. But they had no category for that understanding. Their entire civilization was built on the premise that everything could be assessed, graded, filed, and managed. A thing that fell outside that structure was not, in their administrative language, a possible outcome. So they did what their language allowed. They reclassified the silence as an anomaly pending investigation, reassigned sector to a special oversight committee, and tabled further action pending the committee's report. The committee never issued one. In the 47th cycle, 4 years after the second fleet went silent, the Hegemony filed with the Compact the administrative declaration that TERF Directorate has now located and wishes to cite. The declaration formally designated human space as a pacified territory under Hegemony, administrative control, pending normalization of communication infrastructure. The Compact countersigned it as routine. No member species raised an objection. No one asked why the Hegemony was filing a pacification declaration for a territory their own fleets had not been heard from in 4 years. I have asked myself why many times. The best answer I have is that no one wanted to ask. The older species in the Compact knew what the silence meant. The younger ones did not. The older ones stayed quiet, which is what the older ones always do about that region. It is not cowardice. It is the particular wisdom of having watched, across enough centuries, what happens to civilizations that press the question. 18 months after the declaration, a single Hegemony vessel returned from the boundary. I want to be precise. It crossed back out of the boundary under its own power, on a heading that suggested intent, and it came to rest at the nearest Hegemony relay station. The crew aboard, and there was a crew which is notable, submitted no debrief, requested no assistance, and filed no report. 3 of the 7 members were transferred to a Hegemony medical facility within 6 hours. The other 4 resigned from the Hegemony Survey and Navigation Corps within the same cycle and, as best the records show, never held any official position again. No report was ever filed from that vessel. The Hegemony's Administrative Council closed the inquiry on the grounds that the crew's silence was consistent with ongoing psychological processing of an anomalous operational environment. The Hegemony itself went silent 14 months later. Not suddenly, gradually. The way an archive goes dark when no one is left to maintain the power. The Compact declared them extinct in the 51st cycle, after 7 years of no contact, no government function, no registered activity of any kind. The cause of extinction is listed in our registry as undetermined. That is also policy. I have written my closing notation for the Teravith inquiry. It is 7 words, shorter than the one I wrote for the Hegemony file itself, and it says what needs to be said, This precedent is not available for citation. I will submit it this afternoon. Then I will reseal the file. Then I will sit for a while, in the particular quiet that follows reading something you cannot unknow. And I will think about the hegemony's junior cartographic officer and his confident survey notation, and about all the things he was certain he had assessed correctly, and about what it means to file a document and believe it settles the question. That is what the silence is for.